Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be presenting on a common parasite known as Trichuris Trichiura or whipworm. So, the content for today, um, the introduction, life cycle, etiology, the clinical significance, lab diagnosis, treatment, and the references. So, moving on to the introduction. So Trichuris is also known as the whipworm, which is the parasite of the Helminthes family, which is the roundworm family. They usually affect areas with improper pooling conditions and hygiene. These are typically the tropical or subtropical regions. The, the name whipworm itself was derived from its appearance, which resembled the whip-like structure, having a long anterior end and thick posterior end. So the adult males are typically smaller, sorry, which are 30 to 45 millimeters in length, while the females are slightly larger, measuring 35 to 50 millimeters in length. The egg is barrel shaped with characteristic bipolar plugs at each end. This allows them to be easily identified under the microscope. The primary mode of transmission is through the ingestion of contaminated food or water that has come into the contact with the fertilized eggs of the parasite from the soil. So the life cycle, the female trachea usually produces 2,000 to 10,000 single-celled eggs per day. These eggs are deposited from the human feces. This is usually the feces of someone that is infected. After 2 or 3 weeks, they usually become embryonated and enter the infective stage. So these embryonated infective eggs are ingested by hand, mouth, or through fomites and hatch in the human intestine, exploiting the intestinal microflora as a stimulus to hatching. This is known as the fecal oral route and is common for usually all parasites. This is the location of growth in molten. The infective larvae then penetrate the villi and colonies develop in the small intestine. The young worms move to the cecum and then penetrate the mucosa, and there they completely uh, develop as adult worms in the large intestine. So, the life cycle from the time of ingestion of eggs to the development of mature worms usually takes approximately 3 months. During this time, there are limited signs of infection in the stool sample, so because they are not they are not matured yet, and therefore they haven't produced eggs. So the female Trichuris trichiura begins to lay eggs after 3 months of maturity, and the worms commonly live for about 1 year, during which time females can lay from 2,000 can lay up to 2,000 eggs. So the etiology, eggs in the environment. So the life cycle of Trichuris trichiura begins when the eggs are passed in the feces of the infected host. These eggs require a warm, moist soil environment to develop into the infective stages over a period of about 2 or 3 weeks. Then the infective eggs are then ingested through the fecal oral route. Humans acquire the infection by ingesting soil, food, or water which is contaminated with the infected eggs. This is often a result of poor sanitation practices and can exacerbate by using human feces as fertilizer or by inadequate washing of vegetables. So then the larva starts developing in the small intestine. Then they migrate to the large intestine where they embed themselves into the mucosa and then mature into adult worms there. So the adult worms then reside in the cecum and acidic colon. Then the female worms can then produce thousands of eggs per day, which are then expected in the feces, perpetuating the cycle. So clinical manifestations, the intensity of symptoms depends on the worm burden. Light infections may be asymptomatic, while the heavy infections can lead to symptoms such as abdominal pain, diarrhea, rectal prolapse, and retardation of growth in children. So, some clinical manifestations and pathogenesis. The epidemiology, it is prevalent in tropical and subtropical regions with poor sanitation, including parts of Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Pacific. So the transmission occurs through the fecal oral route, typically through ingestion of soil-contaminated food or water containing embryonated eggs. So clinical manifestations, they can be asymptomatic infections. These people with light infections, and then symptomatic trichuriasis is caused by the heavy infections causing a variety of gastrointestinal symptoms, including the abdominal pain, diarrhea, rectal prolapse, anemia due to bad loss of the parasite's attachment to the intestinal mucosa, and which this can also lead to iron deficiency anemia. And since the nutrients are being absorbed by the parasites, the children or adults can suffer from growth retardation and malnutrition. Some complications, they can go through intestinal obstruction in rare cases where heavy infestations can cause mechanical obstruction of the bowel. Secondary infections, the mucosal damage caused by the whipping can predispose individuals to secondary bacterial infections. This is due to the compromisation of the person's immune system. Some laboratory diagnosis, the most typical way of diagnosing Trichuris Trichiura or whipworm in a clinical setting through through a laboratory diagnosis is through stool over or and parasites exam. This this is usually a microscopy where the uh, whipworm eggs or the whipworm itself are screened in the stool under the microscope. So that's the most prominent method of laboratory diagnosis. Uh, in this method of laboratory diagnosis, sometimes the lab scientist or the person processing the sample may add iodine to the slide. This allows for better visual quality of the sample and easier interpretations. Um, One may also do complete blood count to check for anemia. Um, Egg counts are usually done through parasite exam or microscopies. Um, However, in rare cases, a person may undergo colonoscopy for the diagnosis, but that is very rarely done. Some treatments of trichuriasis, antihelminthic therapy. These are usually drugs which kill these worms. Such drugs, such examples of drugs can be mebendazole, uh, albendazole, ivermectin. Some iron supplements can be given for those who are suffering from anemia. Um, for those who are suffering from malnutrition, usually some nutritional support is given, and clinical assessments are usually done to clinical assessments and tracking are usually done hand in hand to check the patient's whether the patient is improving or not. Some methods of prevention and control of trichuriasis. Um, you may improve sanitation. You may improve sanitation by building and maintaining proper sanitation facilities such as latrines, reduce soil contamination with human feces. You can properly manage waste to avoid human waste from contaminating soil and water sources. You may also promote hygiene like hand washing, food safety, washing of fruits and vegetables thoroughly, and ensuring the food is cooked properly to avoid any potential parasite eggs. You can also spread awareness on these the transmission and effects of the parasite. You can also launch school programs or targeted drug administrations to deworm patients of this whipworm. you can also integrate such programs into these kind of schools and all that, just to have this awareness and build up this yeah, well, practically just to build up person's awareness. And then like this, when once you spread awareness, it kind of motivates a person. It gives them information, extensive information that it allows them to understand what they are up against. So yeah, with that, this presentation has ended. These are some of the references that I had used. um, Thank you for listening.